Welcome to r/slash Askreddit, where people answer the question, people who killed in self-defense, what happened? Our next reply is from Bored at the Border. I was woken up in the middle of the night by banging on the front door. My security camera showed a man kicking at the door and carrying an axe, which he would occasionally swing at the door/handle. We called the cops and they were en route. With 911 on speaker, I got my shotgun and yelled to the man that he needed to leave and that we were armed. My partner stayed with the kids in their bedroom. I shouted several times that he needed to leave and that I would shoot him. He kept kicking the door. He finally broke the door enough to get through. I leveled the gun and shouted again, and he came at me and I fired. Double-aught buckshot in the upper chest. I kicked the axe away and kept the gun pointed at him. The police arrived less than 30 seconds after, and I put the shotgun down and put my hands up. The police officer took my shotgun, then handcuffed the man and rendered aid, but he was already dead. I guess the cops still have to try. The police took a statement, and I emailed the video from my security camera to the detective. A few days later, we got a call from the cops that the family of the man wanted to talk to me, and the detective said that he thought that I should. They were very kind and apologized for their son's actions. They offered to pay for the door that he kicked in and any other damages to the house. The father was very quiet, but had a kind expression. The mother did most of the talking and explained that their son had gotten involved in drugs and they'd lost him years ago. They both apologized many times and offered to help. I explained that our homeowner's insurance was covering the door and damage to the house. We sold the house shortly after because none of us were comfortable living there afterwards, and we moved across town. Every year since, we've gotten a Christmas card from the parents. While reading this, I was thinking to myself, how do such kind people end up with such a, awful son? And my first thought was drugs, and of course, it ends up being drugs. Don't do drugs, kids! Also, this comment from Privileged Checkmate. This is the most wholesome story about home invasion, axe attacks, drugs, gunplay, and fatality that I've ever read. Our next reply is from Diligent Shocker. I was being jumped by 4 guys. One stabbed me in the side, and in the scuffle, I managed to thrust my knife into one of the guy's sides and into his lung. The other 3 ran off. I sat against a fence, listening to the guy try to breathe, and I cried until the police and ambulance arrived. The guy was dead on arrival. I was taken to the hospital and then the station and questioned. I was held till the trial because I was a minor. It was deemed self-defense, and I was forced into therapy to deal with the night terrors. They lasted about 5 years. And for clarity, OP clarifies that he was held in the juvenile detention center. Our next reply is from the Erlenmeyer Flask. I killed a guy that tried to break into my apartment because he wanted to get to his wife that he had just beat the stuffing out of. At 2 a.m., I heard them arguing. I could hear it through my bathroom wall. I shut my bathroom door, then my bedroom door to drown it out. 15 minutes later, the wife is banging on my door, broken nose, left eye swollen, and limping from tripping and falling to get out of the apartment. I told her to go to the bathroom, clean herself up, then hide in my bathroom. The husband comes out of the apartment, yelling her name, and he notices her blood trail to my apartment. He starts banging on my door, yelling to let him in. I warned him 3 times that if he doesn't stop, I'll kill him. He kicks the lock on the door swings open, and I swing my baseball bat down onto his head. He falls to the ground, stunned. He lands stomach first, and I see a handgun tucked into the back of his shirt. I grab it, throw it into my apartment, and warned him 1 more time. He got up and came at me. I slammed my bat into his stomach, then slammed my bat over his head 1 last time, which caved his skull in. I knew from the blood spatter that when I hit, he was dead. Thankfully, the neighbors had called the cops when it started, and the second he fell to the ground dead, the police had made it to the top of the steps. Everyone that was awake came out, gave their statements, and the police talked to my wife in the bedroom. She told the police that she was not leaving that room, so they could take her statement right there. I gave my statement, handed over my bat, showed them the gun, which was registered to him, and I called off work that day. Ooh, I like this line from Christmas Panda. He didn't take a life, he saved one. Our next reply is from Bricktop. My coworker's dad was a jewelry salesman. He went on a sales call with some high-end pieces, and when he was leaving, a guy shot him in the parking lot. The salesman fell down behind his car, and when one of the thieves ran up to him, the salesman shot him. The other guy ran off. My coworker's dad recovered. Both of the thieves ended up in jail. Also, a friend in college had a kid with an absolute douchebag of a guy. She just couldn't save him. After they broke up, she moved back in with her parents. The guy went absolutely mental. He got arrested a few times for stalking her. One day, he showed up at her parents' house and started shooting it up. My friend and her mom had gone to the store, but her dad was in the barn. Her dad shot the guy. He was not missed. Our next reply is from Supernova. So this story is about someone I know, a grandma. Her husband was a Vietnam vet, and they had a very cute and happy marriage. The husband got ill out of the blue and died. About a year later, the grandma started seeing someone. Sadly, after being in a lifelong, happy marriage, she found herself being abused by this man and had never been treated that way. I imagine she stayed because she was lonely. According to what I heard through the grapevine, he attacked her one night at his house, and in fear, she grabbed a loaded gun that was nearby. He was a former cop gun nut, and she shot him dead. His 40-year-old adult son was home at the time, playing video games. He asked her to tell him what had happened. They called the cops, and she was arrested and charged with murder. The local news published a story with her name in it, saying that she was arrested for murder. This 80-year-old woman was in jail for a few days before she was finally released. She was told the case was still open and they would continue to investigate. Her lawyers told her, essentially, to never talk about what happened with anyone. Don't tell your kids, don't go to therapy. Someday, maybe years from now, the detectives will come calling and interview people looking for a reason to lock you up. It's really sad. Local news never took down the story, so if anyone Googles her, they'll think she's a murderer and she went from a blissful happy marriage to a lifetime of trauma within 18 months. Our next reply is from Moram. A neighbor of mine worked as an armed security guard at a store here in California where it is not a stand your ground state. He was telling dudes to stop doing donuts in a packed parking lot. When the security guard got up to the car window, the driver grabbed him, hit him, knocking him down. While the security guard was down, the driver got out of the car and rushed towards him. The guard pulled his gun and killed the guy. The guard was locked up for a month or so because the dude's friend claimed that it was unprovoked, and the store wasn't necessarily a reputable one. The cops pretended there was no footage. He had public defenders who sucked as well. We convinced his family to call up a private attorney, and within a day, the video was magically found, and he was released with no charges. Our next reply is from Analinguist Enthusiast. I worked as a maritime security contractor in 2020 and had to defend a ship. During lockdown, my friend, a former Army Ranger, was attending a veteran support group, and he got approached by a guy looking for security guys, and he was super excited. The ship was also requiring everyone to be vaccinated, so that really hurt with staffing issues. Normally, you have to be former military personnel, but due to their desperation and a lot of complacency, they offered me a role. I'm pretty handy with a rifle, and I used to be an EMT. I had to do a little test to prove proficiency with a rifle, and I was hired. I did some training, got on a boat in the United Arab Emirates, and then I was on my way to Mombasa when we got engaged. I remember just standing and seeing a spark from a ricochet and a pipe burst fluid from a round from the pirates and thinking, whoa, that was a real bullet. The idea that I was being shot at was so foreign to me that it took a moment to register it. I couldn't hear anything except for my breathing and my heartbeat. Boats are normally very loud, as is gunfire, but I couldn't hear a thing. I came up over my sandbags, and due to dumb luck, my reticle was pretty much bang on a guy. I could see the whites of his eyes. He had a blue Cookie Monster shirt on, an AK-47, and a little skiff boat. I made a weird gasp that I'd never made before or made since, flicked off the safety, and pulled the trigger when my sights were right over his right cheekbone. My report says that I shot another guy in the boat, but I don't remember that at all. I do remember seeing the blood on the back of their boat through the scope, though. I also remember bragging before going about how nothing would happen and that if it did, I'd be fine. I was fine, but not for the reasons I would think. My boss gave me the number of a therapist who fought in the Black Hawk Down battle, and he probably saved my life. I was so angry at the pirate for making him shoot him for something as dumb as money. Like, I would have paid him to not try to hijack the boat. It made me really bitter at the world, but simultaneously made me aware of how fragile life is. I moved my finger 2 inches and 2 lives were done. They had probably decades of life, and then boom, it's over. I often think about the Cookie Monster shirt guy. Was he funny? What was his name? Was he an older brother like me? What was his favorite sports team? Did he have a girl that he had a crush on? A couple nights after the incident, we watched Star Wars, and there's a scene where Han and Leia are on speeders on Endor, and they juke a stormtrooper chasing them who crashes into a tree and dies. I absolutely bawled my eyes out over this. A scene I'd watched dozens of times over a faceless character in a movie. I sobbed and sobbed over the stormtrooper's death. My therapist helped me with the killed for money thing. He asked me what I would have done if someone had told me, shoot that guy in the Cookie Monster shirt and you won't get paid your salary. I said that I'd still do it because otherwise I or my crew would die. He pointed out that I didn't do it for the money, but to protect my friends. The same reason that he shot people in Somalia. Our next reply is from Impoverished. I was staying at my parents' place. They were on vacation, thank God. A man broke in a window upstairs while I was in the basement. They didn't expect anyone to be home. I pop out and scream, and this douchebag grabs a nearby knife and came at me. I regretfully ended his life instantly, and the younger guy ran off with the car and was caught almost a full day later. The other guy was charged with manslaughter, and the police later changed it to murder. The guy was convicted of the original charge and has since been released. I had to go to court for about 2 years. I was cleared of all charges. I only spent 20 minutes in jail before being moved to an interview room and later released. Turns out you can defend yourself in Canada. You just have to prove that it was necessary. I've had to endure $600,000 in court costs and a lifetime of trauma and the constant guilt of it. Was it worth it? Yes. Would I use a gun if there was a next time? No. It was over 15 years ago, and while I've gotten over it, it's not something you can ever forget. And the sound of someone, even someone who means you great harm, dying on the floor in front of you is truly awful. Our next reply is from Happy Chicken. The guy didn't die, but he almost did. I was a manager at a grocery store, and one of my employees was being sexually harassed by this 19-year-old kid, so I asked him to leave her alone. He said that he would catch me alone. We lived in a smaller/medium-sized town back then, small enough that it was easy to follow people and find out information. Back then, I didn't have a vehicle, so I walked home after closing the store around 9 p.m. I was in my early 20s, and my younger brother, who was 18, had a reputation. He knew people, he was a troublemaker, me the goody two-shoes. Anyways, I called my younger brother to let him know that I was kind of nervous and scared. So he made it a point to meet me and walk home with me that night. This 19-year-old kid comes zooming in his car and nearly runs us over, but parks on a side street as we cross the street to an elementary playground. He comes running at us, and apparently he had found out that I had a 1-year-old daughter. He starts saying that he's gonna kill her and stuff, so I hit him. I'm a terrible fighter, so I end up tripping over myself, and all of a sudden the kid's almost on top of me. I hear my brother yell, "Hey, I think he's got a knife. What the hell?" So I kick up at him to stop him from what he's doing. My brother comes running full force and uppercuts this kid so hard that I heard something pop. Then the kid's pocket knife is now next to him, and he's on the ground screaming but starting to get up and reach for the knife. So I run up and kick him in the jaw as hard as I can. And I remember seeing blood splash everywhere, and then he slumps and there's no noise. Me and my brother run because we're terrified and end up back at home. My brother reassured me that he deserved it, but I felt nasty and like a piece of garbage. A month later, I come across a GoFundMe page for this kid's jaw reconstructive surgery. He had to have it wired shut, and multiple surgeries were planned to get it back in working order. The fundraiser said that it was an accident that happened on the exact date and time of our fight. I was truly shaken. I was even more bewildered that this kid never told anyone or the authorities about my brother and I. I believed that we would have a good case for self-defense, but I was just shocked that he never even tried to come after us. I still think about it from time to time, and it makes me feel icky. That was r/Askreddit, and if you like this content, check out my podcast where I publish the exact same episodes. Also, hit that subscribe button because I put out new Reddit videos every single day.